Welcome back to my conversation with Geek goddess Angela Saini, award-winning journalist and author of Geek Nation. Angela has made me fall in love with science, a subject that left me scarred as a child. But after reading her book and after my conversations with her, she's opened doors to a world that I can't wait to explore more deeply. Angela's book has several case studies but 10 stories which try to arrive at the conclusion whether India has all the markings to become the next scientific superpower. How did you enjoy your book launch here?
I was thrilled with it. It was the night of the IPL game between Chennai and Kolkata, and I was really worried that nobody would turn up, but we packed out the house and there were some wonderful questions, so I was really happy.
So in the course of your research in India, where did you find the greatest evidence of scientific braininess? And here let me put some words in your mouth. In the South?
I think the South is particularly good. I think partly because rates of illiteracy are much higher and education is far more open, not just generally, but between men and women as well. So you see women far more represented in the sciences and engineering than perhaps in the North. So I was thrilled to come here, and there are stories in this book which are based in Chennai, especially on medical research. Chennai is very famous for its medical research, of course.
You know, when earlier in the program we stopped when the situation looked very grim, but then of course things changed. But did you come to India with preconceived notions which changed during the course of your research?
Well, I tried to be as objective as possible. I'm a journalist. But I did carry a bit of skepticism because lots of people had said to me, both in London and in India, that there is not that much original research happening. The statistics were not very encouraging. And because there's so little science journalism that comes out of India, the picture was very murky. And I was pleasantly surprised, I have to say. And by the end of the book, I mean, I start off skeptical, but by the end of the book, I'm truly optimistic. And I hope that's a journey I take the reader on as well.
You know, in chapter 2, which is titled Electronic City, you talk about the spoken web technology. I'm wondering whether we can start our conversation from there.
Yeah. Well, the spoken web is a kind of uniquely Indian invention. It's this idea that instead of accessing the internet through a computer using text, you access it through your mobile phone using your voice and audio. So it's purely audio based. The clips are all voice or music or recorded audio clips of general activity. And you navigate your way through by pressing buttons on your keypad, which is great because people in India tend not to have computers, the masses, yet there are 500 million cell phone connections. So it's a far more accessible kind of technology. And of course, if you speak a language that's not particularly represented on the internet, or you're illiterate or you're blind, then it's ideal.
Well, I asked you this earlier, and I'd like to read from the book because it's a question that you asked somebody yourself. What bothers Angela, she says, is the kind of technology that they've developed here. If the spoken web is meant to bring the internet to the illiterate masses, then in effect, this is a technology that is bypassing the need to read at all. What does this mean for the country's development? Can throwing expensive technology at a problem really fix it when the government can just go and make people literate? So what do you have to say?
The thing is, literacy takes time to achieve, and it doesn't happen quickly. It happens in a generation. So it's very difficult to take a 50-year-old farmer and say to him, once you become literate, then you will have access to technology. He needs information now. He needs to be able to communicate with his relatives and friends. He needs to know the weather conditions. He needs stock prices, things like that. So he can live his everyday life and be as productive as possible. So what these technologists are doing, their aim, the problem they are trying to fix is not the problem of illiteracy. That is the government's job. The problem they're fixing is the problem of communication, and they're doing that. And I found it difficult to accept that here is a leapfrogging technology that seems to be way too advanced for the situation, but sometimes we have to provide solutions, and perhaps this is the best solution for the problem, and illiteracy will come, the solutions to illiteracy will come later. And the government has made that commitment. I mean, the hope is that kids in the next generation or the generation after that will all be literate.
You know, because science skeptics, if I may call them that, and lay people, they tend to ask this question, you know, based on the facts that you yourself say, that our software industry is said to be worth $12 billion by 2015. The engineering sector has seen a huge growth in job creation, almost 63% last year. And in the coming year, India is expected to create between 10 and 15 million jobs, particularly in IT and biotechnology. Scientists are creatively overcoming shortfalls in resources to ensure quality of research. Cheap technologies are being invented, okay, and the focus of last year's Congress was India's ambition to send an astronaut into space by 2015. But a layperson would say, this is really not development, because still so many people are illiterate, there's still huge amount of poverty in the country, bad sanitation, bad roads, poor infrastructure. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I think that's why I was so careful in the book to pick out examples of where science and technology is being harnessed to help the masses, to help people. And that was Nehru's original vision, you know, that science should be used for the benefit of mankind and to make India a more prosperous country and a better country. So one of the examples, for example, is e-governance, electronic governance. So all over the country, the government is building kiosks at the block level so that people can access land records, birth and death certificates, and studies show that this reduces corruption, reduces waiting time, and reduces that horrible stifling bureaucracy which sometimes makes India a difficult place to live. There's also the example of tuberculosis research here in Chennai, where scientists are working incredibly hard to come up with a cure for this disease that kills 2 Indians every 3 minutes, and almost all of them poor, because it is a disease of the poor.
You know, I actually tend to agree with you, though I don't know too much about science. I would agree with you because I think our biggest problem is corruption. Yeah, the next topic that interests me very much is GM foods. And that's something that we'll have to talk after a short break, because Angela met Vandana Shiva. She also went and met Dr. Pravendranath, who's a molecular biologist, who's working on extending the shelf life of bananas, and that sounds very interesting. Let's talk about that after a short break here on Off the Record.